You're doing it right now. You probably don't even notice it, but your tongue just drifted there, to that tooth. The sore one, or maybe just the one that's been a little off lately. You pressed your tongue against it without thinking, and that tiny, unconscious gesture has been happening in human mouths for at least 300,000 years. That reflex is older than language, older than farming, older than almost everything you think of when you think of what makes us human. And what ancient people did next, after that moment of tongue meets tooth, is one of the most surprising stories in the history of medicine. And here's the thing nobody tells you. The standard version of this story says ancient humans just suffered. They got a toothache, they screamed into the forest, and they either got through it or they didn't. Primitive people, primitive pain, no solutions. But the real story is that our ancestors were performing targeted dental surgery before the invention of the wheel, before the first cities, before writing, before agriculture itself. Understanding this will change how you think about what intelligence actually is and where it actually lives. Here is the question that should be sitting in your mind right now. How did a person in the Stone Age treat a cavity without anything we'd recognize as medicine? That question doesn't have a simple answer. It has a trail of evidence that stretches back further than almost anyone expected, and every time archaeologists follow it, they find something more astonishing than the last. To understand how this happened, you have to imagine a world without any distance at all between you and your pain. No pharmacy 2 miles down the road. No appointment in 3 days. No painkillers in a cabinet above the sink. You are living in a body that is the only medical instrument you will ever own, and when something goes wrong, you have to solve it with your hands and whatever your community has accumulated over generations. The air smells like smoke and wet earth. You can hear the sounds of your group nearby. Your jaw is a constant throbbing presence you cannot ignore, because a bad tooth in this world does not just hurt, it can kill you. An untreated abscess spreading to the jaw, the throat, the brain. This is a survival emergency. In 2015, Professor Roberto Macchiarelli at the University of Poitiers published a study analyzing a 14,000-year-old human tooth discovered in the Riparo Fredian cave in northern Italy. What his team found inside that molar stopped the dental archaeology community cold. The tooth had been deliberately scraped and cleaned. The decay had been physically removed using a pointed flint tool with enough precision to distinguish diseased tissue from healthy tissue. This proved that Paleolithic humans were not just managing pain passively. They were intervening. They understood, in some deeply practical sense, that the rot had to come out. This sounds impossible, but archaeologists have documented this kind of procedure in multiple sites across Europe and the Near East, independently from populations that had no contact with each other. The evidence is not a fluke. It is a pattern. Ancient dentistry was not a reaction to civilization. It predates civilization entirely. The pain, it turns out, was always the teacher. But here is where it gets extraordinary. In 2017, a team led by Dr. Stefano Benazzi at the University of Bologna announced the analysis of a 13,000-year-old human skull recovered from Riparo Villabruna in the Italian Alps. The skull had been in museum collections for decades, but nobody had looked closely enough. When Benazzi's team examined the teeth under high magnification, they found something that should not have existed. 2 of the molars had been drilled open, not chipped, not scraped, but deliberately drilled using flint microblades with a rotating technique to bore through the enamel. And the holes had been filled. The filling material was a composite, bitumen as the base, with human hair and plant fibers packed into the cavity to create a seal that would hold against chewing pressure. That filling is still there. 13,000 years later, it has not failed. Let that sink in. A person who lived before pottery, before writing, before the domestication of any animal, had a tooth drilled open and packed with a multi-material composite filling. And that filling outlasted every civilization that has risen and fallen since. The Romans, the Egyptians, every empire in human history. And the filling is still in the tooth. But this raises a question that has been debated for decades. Did these people actually understand what they were doing, or were they working purely by instinct and accident? You are crouching near a fire. The light is orange and low. Your jaw has been a wall of pressure for 4 days, and the pressure has climbed up behind your eye and settled there like a stone. Someone in your group approaches with a thin piece of flint, no longer than a finger. You know what is about to happen. You have watched this person do this before. You open your mouth. You feel the edge of the stone against the tooth, and then a sensation unlike anything else. A scraping vibration that travels through your jaw and into your skull. It is not pleasant, but you keep your jaw absolutely still because you understand, without being told, that steadiness is part of the procedure. When it is done, you feel something pressed into the hole, held there with firm pressure until it sets. You close your mouth carefully. The wall of pressure behind your eye does not vanish immediately, but the source has been addressed. This is what Paleolithic dental patients did, not occasionally. Every single time this knowledge was needed, it was there. The evidence trail extends even further. In 2017, a separate team at the University of Kansas, led by Professor David Freyer, published findings on a 6,500-year-old jaw found in Slovenia. This jaw had a tooth filled with beeswax, applied while the patient was still alive, the wax conforming precisely to a crack in the enamel to prevent further decay. 6,500 years ago, still more than 3,000 years before the first Egyptian medical papyri would be written. Freyer's team used carbon dating and electron microscopy to confirm the wax had been placed as a functional, deliberate treatment not applied after death. Here is the part most documentaries skip entirely. The cross-cultural consistency of this knowledge is overwhelming. Beeswax fillings in Slovenia, bitumen and fiber composites in Italy, herbal packing materials found in teeth recovered from sites in Pakistan dated to 7000 BCE, analyzed by Professor Macchiarelli's earlier work. 3 continents, no shared language, no shared trade route, no possible transmission of technique. Entirely independent populations arriving at the same fundamental insight. The decay must be removed, and the hole must be sealed. This wasn't primitive guesswork. This was the ancient equivalent of a clinical trial, tested across thousands of patient encounters, refined through generations of outcome observation. This closes the question we opened at the start. Ancient humans survived the worst toothaches not through endurance, but through knowledge. They built a body of dental understanding sophisticated enough to produce a filling that has lasted 13,000 years, and they did it without a single tool we would recognize as modern. Today, you make an appointment. You sit in a reclining chair under a surgical light. A person in gloves injects anesthetic into your gum and removes the decay with a drill spinning at 300,000 RPM. They fill the hole with a photopolymer composite hardened by UV light. You leave with a numb face and a follow-up card. What you traded away was the intimacy of that knowledge, the understanding, carried in human hands across generations, of exactly what a tooth needs when it fails. You traded the knowledge inside the community for the knowledge inside the institution. And most of us never even knew it was a trade at all. In 2018, researchers at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology published analysis of a skeleton found at a Mesolithic burial site in Morocco, dated to approximately 15,000 years ago. The individual was between 25 and 35 years old at death. They had severe dental disease, multiple abscessed teeth, significant bone loss in the jaw. But despite that severity, this person had survived for years with these conditions. The bone had remodeled around the infection sites, which only happens in living tissue over an extended period. This person had been treated repeatedly for a long time by someone who knew what they were doing. Think about that for a second. 15,000 years ago, in a world without institutions or infrastructure, a human being with a failing jaw was kept alive by a community that possessed the knowledge and the will to keep helping them. That is not primitive. That is one of the most human things I have ever read. Your tongue is probably there again, against that tooth. That same involuntary drift that started this whole story. Somewhere in a museum drawer in Italy, a skull is sitting with a 13,000-year-old filling still perfectly intact, placed there by hands that understood exactly what yours are doing right now. The distance between that cave and your mouth tonight is not as far as you think. You are still the same animal, with the same teeth, making the same gesture in the dark. The only thing that has changed is who is keeping the knowledge.